To order. We'll stand and do the flag salute, please. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I guess I should announce that this is the City of Boardman Urban Renewal Agency Budget Committee meeting. So we're going to do a roll call, please.
Paul Kiefer,
Here.
Paul Beagle,
Present.
Junior,
Here.
Katie Norton,
She's online.
so, okay. Leslie Pearson,
Here.
Brenda Prophet,
Here.
Isaac Williams,
Here.
Emerald Lantis,
Here.
Ted Lawrence is absent, Lisa Middlesworth,
Here.
Alejandra Mendoza,
Here.
and Sonia Neal.
Here.
And I have David Norton is absent.
Do you have enough budget members?
We do have enough for a quorum, and we also have enough for a majority, so we can conduct business. We need 7 for a quorum and 7 for a majority.
Does that meet our needs?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so having to do that, we need to appoint a budget committee chair. So I'm open for nomination for a committee person.
I'd like to nominate Isaac Williams.
Okay. Anybody else would like to do it? Okay, so I have a motion. I need a second. Because I would imagine we have to vote on it.
I'll second that motion, please.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there anybody like to discuss about anything?
As usual, can we ask Isaac if he'd like to accept this nomination?
I was not prepared, but I'm willing to try.
So is that a yes?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let's go ahead and we'll do a vote. Roll call, please.
Okay. Paul Kiefer,
Yes.
Paul Beagle,
Approve.
Junior,
Yes.
Katie Norton, she can hear me.
It appears she's having some audio
We'll come
issue.
back to her. Leslie Pearson,
Yes.
Brenda Prophet,
Yes.
Emerald Lantis,
Yes.
Lisa Middlesworth,
Yes.
Alejandra, Sonia Neal,
Yes.
Katie Norton, is she back up? Oh, she says yes on there. Okay, cool. And then do I ask Isaac if he wants to vote for himself?
Yes, you would.
Yes.
All right. So Isaac, I will pass over the chair to you so that you can start following the things. You see what you need to do?
I certainly got started with establishing the ground.
Good job. Good luck. You'll do just fine.
Thank you, sir. I guess before we begin, I'm going to establish the ground rules for the meeting. The length of this meeting will not exceed 2 hours. There will not be any breaks for the duration of this meeting, or there will be breaks requested. The length of individual speaking time will be limited to 3 minutes. The review process is as follows. All budget meetings are subject to public law. At this meeting, the budget officer will propose the budget. We will hear the budget message. The budget officer will present the budget documents, and the budget committee will hear and consider public comment pertinent to the budget. After discussion and revisions, if necessary, the budget committee will approve the budget and the property tax levies. This marks the end of the budget committee obligations. Next, a public hearing will be held by the Boardman City Council. The City Council will adopt the budget and certify taxes. Tax certification documents will be submitted to the Morrow County Tax Assessor's Office by July 15th. A copy of the budget documents will be submitted to the Morrow County Clerk by September 30th. I believe we move to the budget officer budget message.
Yes, thank you. Starting on page 4, you will find the budget message, which I will now read to you. Members of the Boardman Urban Renewal Agency, I present to you today the proposed budget for the 22-2023 fiscal year for both districts of the Boardman Urban Renewal Agency. Since the establishment of the URA, 2 urban renewal districts have been adopted, the Central Renewal District and the West Boardman Urban Renewal District. These districts do not have a lot of budgetary activity on an annual basis. The projects selected within each district, independently of each other, are carefully examined and analyzed before they make it past the brainstorming phase and into a viable project. This year, infrastructure project identified for the Central Urban Renewal District. This project will help with the development in the area, as is the purpose of a renewal district. The street improvement of Southeast Front Street and an extension to loop with Southeast Oregon Trail Boulevard is the planned street project. The city of Boardman is the financial leverage for the Central Urban Renewal District. This proposed project will require up to $2 million for its completion. This project should increase assessed value in the area and in turn increase the property taxes levied, bringing in the money to help repay this infrastructure investment. In the coming years, the property taxes collected by the Central Urban Renewal District will be used for that purpose. And there are currently no planned infrastructure projects for the West Urban Renewal District. Having placed the 2022-2023 proposed budget in your hands, I ask for your review and approval. Respectfully submitted, Marta Barajas, Budget Officer and Finance Director.
Thank you. Budget Officer, Marta, would you continue the presentation of budget document?
Yes, thank you. On page 7, you have your budget for the Central Urban Renewal District. This is the district in which we have the infrastructure project, a street project budgeted in. You will see down in the expenditures line item, the capital projects line item only lists $1,700,000, and the additional $300,000 for the $2 million that I mentioned is in contingency. The reason for that is that contingency allows us to move that money into possibly a different category as things may come up through the construction, versus if we all tie it in one line item, then we can't move. That's that difference. As I mentioned, the city upfronts the cost, and then every year as the urban districts collect their property taxes, they repay little by little to the city. The prior projects that the Central Urban District has had in the past have a balance of just over $65,000 left to repay to the city, and that is what is budgeted in this coming fiscal year, is to finish repaying that the last projects from the Central Urban Renewal District. That is really the only activity that we have. I say that like a street project is something really simple, but that is the only project that we have, and the activity all surrounds that. So unless somebody has some other questions on the Central Urban Renewal District.
Can I ask a question, please?
Yes.
Good.
The former expense, is that the line item under other expenses at 65,210? That will be.
Yes, that's where the repayment to the city goes.
Thank you.
Just Junior?
And is this a tax, is this a, sorry, interest-free payback, or is there interest?
Yeah, no, these are, we've done interest-free
Interest-free.
for the urban renewals.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, moving on to the West Urban Renewal District. We don't, like I mentioned, we don't have any infrastructure projects planned this year for the West Urban Renewal District. We do have $95,345 budgeted to pay back to the city. We anticipate that if this West Urban Renewal District continues to collect the taxes that is anticipated for the next fiscal year, we should have enough to finish repaying back the city the remaining balance that it owes as well. And that's about $182,000 after this $95,000 payment. And that is the only activity really that is scheduled for the West Boardman Urban Renewal District. Are there questions on this one? Okay. On page 13, you have just the combined summary by district. And other than that, this is the full presentation on the Boardman Urban Renewal Agency's budget.
Thank you, Mark. Yes, Roy.
I'm prepared to make a motion. This is the right time to do that.
I believe if I was to respect the agenda, there's a section made for public comment. And without skipping that,
Okay.
I would just like to open up if there is anyone that would like to say anything or has questions. Having hearing none.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor. So I was looking at the West Boardman renewal and the green section. And so I see Paul Smith, so a lot of that green is that open field? Or is that including new housing that's coming out? Or, oh, I just answered my own question. I have no question. I just found the road, I was on the wrong side. I have no question.
Yes, sir. Having no other questions, would we like to put forward a motion to approve the proposed budget?
I move that the Boardman Urban Renewal Agency Budget Committee approve the proposed budget for the 2022-2023 fiscal year as presented in the amount of $2,410,900. I further move that the Boardman Urban Renewal Agency Budget Committee certify to the Morrow County Tax Assessor a request for the Boardman Urban Renewal Agency for the maximum amount of revenue that may be raised by dividing under Section 1C, Article 9 of the Oregon Constitution and ORS Chapter 457.
I will second that motion.
Jen? Thank you.
I'll be
Approved.
Junior.
Yes.
Katie Norton. Leslie Pearson,
Yes.
Brenda Prophet,
Yes.
Isaac Williams,
Yes.
Paul Gifford,
Yes.
Emerald Lantis,
Yes.
Lisa Middlestor,
Yes.
Alejandra Mendoza,
Yes.
and Sonia Neal.
Yes.
It's wonderful. Process continuation. Next is the budget committee meeting on the 24th.
We won't need that one.
I'm sorry. And I believe I am able to call this meeting to adjourn.
We just stay with the same Zoom. Okay. Great. We're still recording?
Yes.
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 hereby call this meeting to order, the Budget Committee meeting, May 17, 2022. So I don't think anybody left. So we'll stay with the same people who are already here. So we need to appoint a Budget Committee chair. I'm open to nominations for a Budget Committee chair.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to appoint Brenda Crockett.
I second. I have a motion and a second. Is there any question?
To be fair, would Councilor Prophet like to accept this?
Oh, my goodness. I
She doesn't have a
did
choice.
so much trouble. Sure.
All right. She has accepted, so we'll go into a roll call vote, please.
Most definitely.
Junior,
Yes.
Katie Norton. Yes. Leslie Pearson,
Yes.
Isaac Williams,
Yes.
Paul Kiefer,
Yes.
Emerald Lantis. Yes. Lisa Middlestorm. Yes. Alejandra Mendoza,
Yes.
Sonia Neal,
Yes.
Brenda Prophet, you want to vote for yourself? Yes, okay.
All right, congratulations, Brenda. You now have the chair.
So the length of this meeting will not exceed 2 hours. There will not be any breaks for the, actually, if the meeting exceeds 1 hour, there will be a 5-minute rest period. The length of individual speaking time will be limited to 3 minutes, and the review process is as follows. All budget meetings are subject to public meeting law. At this meeting, the budget officer will propose the budget. We will hear the budget message. The budget officer will present the budget documents, and the budget committee will hear and consider public comment pertinent to the budget. After discussion and revisions, if necessary, the budget committee will approve the budget and the property tax levies. This marks the end of the budget committee obligation. Next, a public hearing will be held by the Board and City Council. The City Council will adopt the budget and certify taxes. Tax certification documents will be submitted to the Morrow County Tax Assessor's Office by July 15th, and a copy of the budget documents will be submitted to the Morrow County Clerk by September 30th. So, without further ado, Budget Officer.
Thank you. The budget message that I will read starts on page 5 of the City of Boardman proposed budget booklet. Members of the City of Boardman Budget Committee, I am pleased to present to you the proposed budget for your consideration of the 2022-2023 fiscal year. We are mostly back to our pre-pandemic routines, with some remaining inhibitors, but are still making progress through the city's projects. Infrastructure projects always have a long time in planning before any actual dirt work or construction work are seen. During the past few years, we have been working on just that, planning and design. The citizens of Boardman passed a GEO bond in the amount of $20,320,000 to fund a new collector well, a water booster pump station, a new water reservoir with an approximate 1 million gallon capacity, the addition of a new 13-acre wastewater lagoon, including the purchase of land and construction of the lagoon and wastewater lift station. This GEO bond also refunded the outstanding balances of the previous water and wastewater bonds. This was done simultaneously when the bonds were sold and all the issuance costs were paid. The remaining proceeds, being $18,498,750, are being used for the aforementioned projects. Most of these projects are being completed simultaneously, and if supply resources hold up, we anticipate utilizing up to 70% of the funds in this coming year. Another infrastructure project in the works is the replacement of outdated water lines along Northwest Columbia Avenue. The initial scoping has been completed, and we are in the design and drawing phase. This project's completion is anticipated by the end of the summer. As we continue to progress through the ramifications of the COVID-19 pandemic, we are pleased to announce that the City of Boardman was awarded federal assistance from the American Rescue Plan Act through the established coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds. The first allotment from these funds was dispersed earlier this year, with the other half being dispersed this coming fiscal year. Combined, we were awarded approximately $832,700. The city will invest in an advanced metering infrastructure system, sewer and road infrastructure, and personnel investment. The timing of these funds was imperative to the city in order to move forward with some of these projects. The East Laurel Lane Loop Road project was one of them. This project has been in the works for years and site work is currently underway. An extension of the road into a loop and the extension of sewer services into that area of Boardman are the main infrastructure additions of this project. These projects meet the eligibility use of the state local fiscal recovery funds funding. The use of these funds has restrictions and the reporting of fund expenditures and obligations has been submitted. The building department is actively pursuing the implementation of a completely online permitting process. Staff have sat through numerous presentations and software demonstrations to find the right fit for the building department and its clients. It's an exciting time and many more staff hours will be invested to get this up and going. It will also contain a planning module so that all relevant property approvals and permits are housed in a single database. Some other additions to the city processes are the implementation of a business license registry, an update to the system development charges formulation and fees, of which we are currently working on with FCS consultants, and awaiting the report of the traffic study done in April 2022 along Main Street. This report is an important aspect of future planning of upgrades on Main Street. We all know of the congested intersections along the street, and this report will give us a professional engineered look at the real issues and possible resolutions or recommendations to help with the flow, reduction of congestion, and the safety of drivers, pedestrians, and bystanders. The City Council has agreed that the partnership with the Boardman Community Development Association is of utmost value. It is supportive of future partnership efforts throughout the city. A sidewalk along East Columbia Avenue to address the safety of the pedestrians who walk that route is planned for this summer. Easements and underground utilities needed to be mapped and configured in the possible layout of the sidewalk. This project is also currently in the architectural and engineering drawings phase. The city will be financially responsible for the cost of the drawings and engineer fees, and BCDA will complete the actual construction of the sidewalks. The city's boundary of Wilson Lane is awaiting a chip seal. As the Morrow County Public Works Department gets their equipment scheduled for this part of Boardman, we will have this project completed by then. Similar work has been performed through intergovernmental resources, and they have worked out for both entities, and we will continue this partnership into the future. The next big project is an expansion of the current City Hall building. It's hard to believe that this building is already 18 years old. This building houses the police department on the north side of the building and all of the departments on the City Hall side, which is the south side of the building. The building department utilizes a good portion of the City Hall side. It is no doubt that it is one of the busiest departments within its side of the building. Office space and workspace have become scarce, and the building official prefers for the department to remain in the same location as the other city functions. The addition will provide needed space for its staff, its clients, and prospective developers to more efficiently carry out the needed tasks. As you can see, Boardman is in no way a dormant city. The ability to make these projects a realization and not remain in the planning phase requires a set of skilled staff. And we're very proud of the staff that we have working and overseeing these projects to fruition. If you see a city employee, please thank them for their efforts and for their dedication. I didn't even address the day-to-day tasks that it takes to keep the city running. I believe this budget sets the financial path to the roadmap of projects in store for us. Respectfully submitted, Marta Barajas, Budget Officer and Finance Director. Beginning with our general fund, it is by far our largest fund in terms of activity and transactions. It houses most of our general, operational, and administrative revenues and expenses. And our previous, a couple years ago, our biggest revenue source were property taxes, of which we do expect approximately a 7.7 increase in property taxes collected, or in property taxes that we expect to collect versus what we have previously. That does include a 4% discount that we calculate in there for the bad debts for people who it takes them years to pay their taxes. So we take a conservative approach, and the county also takes a conservative approach when they send out their calculation of what they expect for the city of Boardman. In our resources, like I said, prior to a few years ago, property taxes was the largest revenue source. You will see that our grants and loans line item, it looks like it just took a huge, enormous jump from prior years. Included in there are a lot of new grants that we have not been receiving. Many of these large grants have come from the Columbia River Enterprise Zone. We anticipate to be awarded what we were, at minimum, what we were awarded this year, being $1,383,000. And that was to the city of Boardman for being a sponsor on the Crest 2 board. The Boardman Police Department is awarded $165,000. And all of the resources are captured in this fund, in the general fund. So the police department does not have a separate fund for resources. All their expenditures are tracked in a separate department within the fund, but all revenues are just lumped together. Amazon also, this year, they somehow there was a misapplication of the categorical exemptions, and that got passed on to our Morrow County tax assessor. And when Amazon realized what had happened, they reached out and said, well, something wasn't categorized correctly, but ORS 311.2066 states that additional taxes may not be assessed and imposed if they are a result of an exemption granted in error by a tax official. But being a good business partner in the community that they wanted to be as, Amazon stated they would like to pay the amount of what would have been the tax, even though there's no statutory requirement for them to do so. And so they made a payment of $11,545,618 issued to Morrow County for it to be dispersed as if taxes had been collected. The Morrow County Commissioners voted to share this payment with most of the taxing districts within Morrow County, and they awarded to the city of Boardman $200,000. Towards our bond, they allocated $316,665. This was noted that these would be a one-time payment, and so the funds were received this year. In our budget, you see them under beginning cash because it'll be a cash carryover, and then we will be transferring those funds, and I will explain the transfers a little bit further down in the same budget year. And if I get you confused when I mention this year, next year, please go ahead and ask me and clarify, because I know sometimes it's hard to distinguish this year from next year, especially when we're talking about money and grants and figures and projects. So if I don't make it clear, please let me know and I can
Did you
explain
say
that.
cash carryover already? I was thinking of other things. What's our
Yes.
cash carryover from 2021 to 20, or for the last budget year, I guess is what I'm saying. So we have the new budget, so that would be 21-22, right?
For
That's our
20
last budget,
Yes,
and we're going into 22-23, correct?
yes.
So what is our cash carryover for the city of Boardman as far as total budget money?
What was it for 21-22, or what are we budgeting for 22-23?
Well, I guess we can't say since 21-22 is not over yet, right?
It's, but the beginning cash was on July 1st. So 21-22, our beginning cash in the general fund was $4,219,000. We're estimating this year our beginning cash to be $2,850,000.
Okay.
And in 21-22, we also got funding from CREZ, which gave us that large amount to carry over, and then we transferred it into.
Oh, gotcha. So the CREZ money gave a boost.
Yes,
So we're usually keeping around $2 million as cash carryover, $2 to $4 million.
when we've been receiving these grants, yes.
When we don't receive grants, it's usually zero. We should
No,
have a cash carryover.
Yeah,
right,
we do
though?
have cash carryover, but it just depends on the timing of grants.
Gotcha.
Are we looking at page 10?
Yes,
Okay.
Okay.
Are you looking at page 10?
No, I was just asking a question because I was thinking other things like for other questions, but I was on page 11.
Well, the only reason I'm pointing out page 10 is that it has the actual for 1920 and 2021. Then it shows you what the budget was for 21-22.
On
So,
page 10.
so you can kind of see how much we've had cash carryover, the beginning cash in those years.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Leslie, you had a question?
Yeah, can you just repeat, you said of that $11 million Amazon paid to the county, 200,000 was distributed to the city of Boardman, and did you mention $300,000 went somewhere else?
Towards our bond, our GO bond.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
I see where
I
you're
have a
saying.
question. Is that what we would have received if we had received it as taxes?
No, we probably would have received more, but I don't have all the breakout of what tax districts it would apply to and what their rates are to do an actual breakout in comparison. Because it was over 2 years. So we would have to know year one, what taxing districts that affected and the tax rates then, and then year two, what taxing districts that affected and their rates that year to allocate it all up, to know exactly or closer to what we would have gotten.
I got a question again for you, Marta. So we've kind of actually increased from 1.7 to 3.0 to 4.9, and that's largely due for cash carryover due to grants that we received later in that year that we don't spend.
Yes, 2020, the fiscal year 2020, 2021 is when we really started getting, well, actually any grant money from CREZ too. Before that, the city was not a recipient. They were on the board, but it was dispersed to other categories. And it wasn't until then that the sponsors finally took a disbursement.
I got you. So the increase of the cash carryover is partly due to the CREZ funding.
Yes. Another grant that we are happy to get every year is from the Morrow County School District for our SRO officer. We received $50,000 from them. And a grant we just got this year, I know through the pandemic, we all saw how the federal government was dispersing funds, different rounds for families, then for businesses, and they finally got to local government. It took them almost 3 years to finally get there. But we did receive half of our allotment. They did divide it out in two. So we have received the first half of our allotment, which is $416,356. And we anticipate receiving the second half shortly after the beginning of this fiscal year is what we've been told. And then I'll go into depth as to what we're going to do with those funds. And We always allow for other revenues because we do have, like we said, some of these grants, some of these small ones show up or that we're eligible for. The police department is applying for a small $6,000 grant. So to allow for those small cities grants, things like that.
Marge, I have a question. Is it appropriate to talk about the police, public safety, police budget now, or is that coming?
That's coming.
Okay,
We're getting it. So this is the fund that is broken out into departments. Everyone, all the other funds are pretty much one fund and that's it. This is the one that is broken out to departments. First, we have our general government, which is your administrative staff, your office staff, and also city council expenses and city council goals, any extra little projects that we have that can be allocated to a general government department. If it's something that is even broader, that'll go in our last department, which is the non-departmental department. Now in the public safety, we have seen our city grow. We keep seeing businesses expand. I know we see new faces all the time. And in order to keep the safety, the public safety at the safety that we've all been accustomed to, Chief of Police has asked to hire another police officer to help with coverage and to help with the increase in volume of calls so that we can keep continuing to have the public safety that we've grown accustomed to. And so we have included the costs in this budget for the addition of the police officer, for the addition of the vehicle and uniform and supplies that additional police officer would entail.
So it's up $200,000 if I'm reading it correctly. For another officer, it's $200,000.
It also includes, so I'm gonna go back a little bit back to the revenues. When we received funding for from the ARPA funds, one of their push was you need to invest in your personnel. This is also why we're giving this money to local governments. You need to invest in your personnel. So we do have a premium pay worked in here for every employee. That's a one-time premium pay. Along with the COLA increase for our current personnel. So a combination of all of those is what makes that increase. And so not just the new police officer.
my question was on the 12 FTE. Who's the other half-time police officer? Isn't it?
We don't have a half-time police officer.
Well, wouldn't Schreiber be a half-time for you?
No, the SRO is completely funded by, well, for the most part, the city, the school, and money's from CREZ. But he's still a full-time employee of the police department. He's not an employee for the school.
Where do you see that number?
I just see 12 FTE, so I was trying to think, I thought he was half-time.
Page 10.
Oh,
I thought he was half-time school.
He's a full-time employee for the police department assigned to the schools.
Yes. The city does not have a department for schools. So he is a full-time employee of the police department. He reports to police supervisors, to the police chief for 100% of his duties.
So why are we, I guess my question is, why are we paying for part SRO if we're not utilizing this? I mean, if we're paying for, if he's a full-time officer, we just taking the cash to help supplement a job, is that what we're doing?
So his primary assignment is the school resource, as a school resource officer. That is his primary assignment.
When the city council first agreed to do this, Mr. Cooper, we knew that the school district would not be able to fund the entire cost of an SRO. So what the city council at the time decided to do, if I remember correctly, Karen, you and Chief can help on this, I'm sure. But we decided that we would take the money from the school district, and I believe that they spend the same amount in each city or in each school area, like Irrigan, Hebner, Boardman. And we would take that money from them, but we would hire someone and we would bring up the rest of the balance of that salary. And we would pay for that as a way to support the city of Boardman and the school district.
I guess where I'm coming from, I think we're at a time where we need to change our SRO, and he needs to be a full-time officer in Boardman. School district can pay for their own SRO. That's where I'm coming from. We are growing. We can pay the additional $50,000 to finish, to have a full-time officer.
So, Mr. Mayor, if I can, so, the school district as a whole can't afford to hire an SRO for each school district.
No, they're gonna hire for Boardman.
For each school. The agreement that we entered with the school district was to provide SRO services and that we would split that with the school. The value of the SRO is extremely important, especially when we look at what we tried to achieve over the years. When I first got here, I walked through the school and the kids wouldn't look at the police officers at all. They would turn away from them. That's heartbreaking. We don't want our students to feel that way. We want them to know that as a police officer, we're here to help you. We want you to feel comfortable with us. Because we have that program in place, now we have a much better, stronger rapport with those students. As you can see, if you look at our gang issues that we had 12 years ago compared to where they are today, I would attribute it a lot to the SRO program and would encourage you to continue to fund that program.
I'm just saying that I don't think we're getting, I just don't think halftime is appropriate for either or.
So
I don't think halftime SRO for the school, and if that's not, if their primary assignment is SRO, then they need to be SRO.
So let me, he is a full-time police officer, 100% full-time police officer. His assignment is as a school resource officer. So that's his primary duties. As a police officer working in the schools, their officer safety skills are diminished because they're not as rigid. I would say they're more approachable, they're more high-five and stuff, but you don't do that to the general public. So in the summer months, when the SRO is not performing those duties, he's out in a patrol car, working shifts just like the rest of the officers, trying to regain those skills and those officer safety skills that he's lost, basically, and try to re-up those. He works full-time in school. During the summer months, he works full-time for us.
So he works an 8-hour day at the schools is his primary assignment.
I have a question. How long have we had an SRO in Boardman?
I think we're at least at 6 or 7 years.
And in all that time, has Morrow County ever increased their granting dollars?
The school district?
Yeah, Morrow County School District.
No.
So,
But remember, where we get most of the money is through the credit bureau. That's who pays most of the money, both for the school side and for the city side.
I guess where I'm coming from is, I think, how do I say it without being a jerk? Just say, I just don't think the SRO is spending enough time in the schools. And so if there's not, so I guess my point would be is either, maybe I'm just, it's a misconception of me. I would think that for the amount, is he being pulled out? Is that SRO, I should say he, is the SRO being pulled out for other duties during the day when there's no activity that would be in the school?
So our contract with the school pretty much says that, one, I'm in full control of that person. I do all supervisory responsibilities. If in the event of an emergency, then we can utilize that SRO for whatever emergency there is. Aside from that, his responsibilities are the schools. I have to tell you that when an officer takes a report, they have to come here to type the report. They can't do it in the school environment. And the SRO takes quite a few reports. He also, when he takes a report, has to go to court on that report. So he's going to be going to court as part of his duties. So to say that he's not in school, I don't know what to tell you.
I guess the bottom line is, I think one entity should pay for it all. That's where I'm going. We need to have an SRO. If the SRO is going to be dedicated to school for a certain amount of time and a certain amount, then the school needs to pay for that. If the school doesn't, and then they split it accordingly that way. I guess I'm looking for a board-defined avenue of who's got the SRO, who doesn't have the SRO. Maybe this is the wrong point, but I think that if the school district is having a SRO, they need to pay more for it. If Boardman Police Department wants more PD, then they're gonna pay more for it. We're already planning on hiring a new staff, so we know that more employees for the police department is important. We know that the SRO is very important, and I'm not saying we get rid of the SRO. Somebody's got to pay more. That's what I'm saying. So if the SRO, if it is the school district's portion is $50,000, then they get $50,000 worth of SRO. And if that's whatever percentage that is, I guess that's where I'm getting done at.
Lisa?
I would have a couple comments, Paul. I think that there's a real benefit to the community, how all the schools have an SRO. So if you're looking for more funding that's not city of Boardman related funding, I think that is a good topic that we could have at the next disbursement meeting for press. And Sid President pick up more payment for all of the SROs. So I believe in the other schools, the county was picking up part of the cost of that too.
So with the county, the school district pays a portion, probably the same amount that we're paying, and that they pay us, and then the county picks up for the others.
Right, and I don't know what is going to happen in Irrigate now. But no, it's a good comment, but I think that having that school resource officer is good for our community, not just for our school district. I think it's good for our kids, our citizens, to know that there's somebody there on a regular basis. Maybe you don't see it as much because you've got less student population in other schools. Maybe your school doesn't have some issues that might be going on in some of the other schools. I don't know.
I also think that the school resource officer in the past has actually had teaching duties that they've done as a part of the SRO role at the high school.
Looking for more equitability.
Between
Everybody
three
talks about
classrooms.
equitability. And if you want equitability from the police department, then you're gonna pay for equitability. I guess that's where I'm coming from.
So maybe it is discussion to go back to the CRES board or the Morrow County Educational
I think
Foundation,
the
wherever that
school
money is
board
coming
gets
from
into the CRES
directly
board
and
different.
ask for a larger grant.
And I also think we'll have
He
some-
did.
I've been listening, and it's been voiced that all the cities in Morrow County, Bettner, Irrigan, and Boardman have an SRO officer. And Morrow County School Board pays $50,000. Who provides the SROs to Hefner and Erie? And does that $50,000 cover all three cities?
So
Sheriff's office.
because Dearden and Hefner had a contract with Morrow County Sheriff for their law enforcement services, that's who provides the SROs for those schools. And don't quote me, but I believe they get 50,000 for each one of those cities.
Well, that's not the way it's worded.
I can't control what the county does.
And
This is
that's
what-
not our
this is what
budget.
the city does. I don't know what they're getting.
So for our budget, we are only budgeting for the 50,000 that is in the current agreement. Don't have any negotiations in place to put it in here differently. So we have the 50,000 budgeted from Morrow County School District for our school resource officer, and the 85,000 budgeted from CREZ 2 for our school resource officer.
I do have
So
one other question.
Go ahead.
I'm noticing here on page 10, where it talks about payroll costs. And from 21-22 to 22-23, we're getting one additional patrol officer or one additional employee. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and he's gonna get paid $105,000 for his position? That's
No,
under
that's right.
payroll cost. It went up $105,000
Right, and
from,
this is what I had explained to earlier, is that this includes the premium pay from the ARPA funds, and then also includes the COLA raises for the entire department.
so is that amount gonna stay current, or does it fluctuate? I know cost of living will go up, 3 or 4% a year. This year it's 8%. However, the two entities that you mentioned, are they gonna stay firm and continue to support this?
Yes, and those numbers, we're using what we know of. Whether CREZ decides to give the police department more money, we can't say, yes, that's definitely what they're gonna do. So we budget for what we're pretty certain that we're gonna get. But if we could potentially get more.
Thank you.
So my question, I guess, would be salaries is up 200,000 and payroll is up 105,000. Am I misreading it?
So all our payroll costs include all of the benefits, which includes PERS. PERS alone for police officers, aside from their 6%, which we pay into the unfunded actuarial liability, is 26.23%, somewhere around there, don't put the exact amount, but it's around that percentage. So whatever we pay them in their gross salary, that 26% goes to PERS.
20%, 26% of that total salary.
Yes.
So on top of it goes to PERS.
Correct. And then also in payroll costs, you have the health insurance, dental insurance, vision insurance, life insurance, long-term disability, accidental death and dismemberment, trauma care, all of those. So we use the percentages that the insurance company tells us, this is what you should budget for. We're expecting a 13% increase in medical, but only a 2% in vision. Or nothing in dental, but you're gonna see an 8% in vision. Well, vision insurance premiums are pretty low, so you have to say 8%, it's not a big jump. But if they were to say 8% for health insurance, that's gonna be a huge jump. So the payroll costs, that's why they fluctuate so much, because it just depends on what the economy is doing and where those insurance premiums are expected to fall.
So the payroll costs are the PERS dollars and the insurance benefit dollars. The salaries is the gross income.
Yes.
And so in the gross income over a 4-year spread, the gross income's gone up $400,000.
And we also budget in there, or I also budget in there, we have employees who like to carry We have employees who've been there for many, many years, and they like to carry a large vacation balance. They're allowed to cash that out. I have to allow every year for that cushion in case one of them decides they want to cash out a big portion of it. I don't know if they will, but I have to have that in my budget in case they do, because I can't tell an employee, I'm sorry, I can't let you cash out your vacation.
That's in salaries, you said?
Yes,
So the payroll, like we were talking before, is mainly benefits, employee benefits.
yes.
And PERS.
So what?
And PERS.
Yes, which is an employee benefit,
Yes.
because they pay for it.
So just to recap on that $300,000 includes COLA, one more officer,
Premium
and the
pay
premium pay for all 12 officers.
and an allowance for any vacation payouts.
In the 300,000, the difference?
Yes. Our next department is the code compliance. That department doesn't have a lot of shifts. One of the big expenses this year is the code compliance computer. It is a tough book. It is one that has to be specially installed into the truck. It's so that they can run cases and communicate with dispatch. And so that's the biggest equipment expense that it has. And other than that, there isn't very many changes in that department. It's pretty straightforward. Our facilities department, it looks like it went down, but not necessarily. Some of the expenses, if I'm able to allocate it to a specific department, I will move those over. And that is what happened with some of these. But I want to point out on the facilities department, if you look at our last line item for debt service, you will see that we've had 240,000 as actual and 240,000 as budgeted for the 21-22 year, but for this year, we're at 0. We will be paying off the mortgage on City Hall building this June. So next fiscal year, we will have no more outstanding mortgage on this building.
18 years.
In 18 years, yes. When Tom was here, he had increased the amount of payment, and then when I came on board, I did some calculations, and I said we can increase it even more, and it's gonna save us in interest, and we're gonna pay it off sooner, so here we are. We will be debt-free on this building at the end
Good
of
job.
this fiscal year.
Good job.
Yes. Our last department within the general fund is the non-departmental fund. These are the ones that you can't really pinpoint them to one specific fund. So some of the, well, let me start with the biggest one. It says payroll costs, and I know we just talked payroll to death, but hear me out on this one. A couple of years ago, PERS had approached the state and then all the lobbyists saying, everybody who participated in PERS needs to do something because everybody's unfunded actuarial liability is just growing and growing and growing, and nobody sees an end sight as to actually catching up. The unfunded actuarial liability is PERS calculates how much this needs to have in assets in PERS to cover all the employees once they retire. And that unfunded actuarial liability is just that figure. This is how much more the city needs to contribute in order to pay. And obviously, this is an ongoing calculation and it changes every year. And this is why they update their PERS rates every 2 years. But nobody ever catches up. There are some cities that their unfunded actuarial is like 20 million.
This is on top of what the employee pays back? So the employee's paying back in first too, right?
No, the city is paying back. The
Also,
employee just contributes to their own account. The
Oh.
city pays the other
The
portion.
city also has to pay back their portion.
Yes,
So they're getting the employees and the businesses?
Municipalities.
Hmm.
Public businesses,
Well,
municipalities.
I mean, anybody who pays into PERS, anyone pays into PERS, the employee pays back whatever percentage the state tells them they qualify for. And then the entity that also pays PERS, like the city of Boardman, has a percentage that they have to pay back in addition
Yes,
to what they pay their employees.
in addition to the 6% match.
That goes straight to the PERS fund.
Yes. To make sure there's funds there for when the
It goes
employees
to the
retire.
general PERS fund, but not to the employees' PERS.
Correct, correct.
So you guys are getting messed over just like the employees are.
Everybody see this.
Everybody. yeah.
Correct. Everybody who pays into PERS.
So back to this.
Okay.
A couple years ago, the state finally said, oh, we have excess funds. So what we're gonna do is, we're gonna provide a 25% match called an employer incentive fund. If we contribute X amount of money, the state will match 25%. And we have to send it in on a certain date. It was so popular that they ran out of money and they had a waiting list. The city of Boardman was put on a waiting list. And they told us, we have no idea if funds will become available in the future or not, but do you want to remain on the waiting list? And we said yes. A few months ago, we received an email where the state says they're going to be doing a second round. And they're going to start with those on the waiting list. More information to follow in the future. And here we are, we still haven't heard any more, but that was a promising and almost a guarantee that this is coming. When this first round came out, we had approached city council, presented it to them, where we would ask for an interfund loan from the building department to send in this money so we could get the 25% match from the state. And once again, that is what we are anticipating to do with this next round of state matching funds. I've heard that we may be hearing something in the fall with a possible payment to be sent in January. So we wanted to make sure that that was available so that when that comes open, because that is one of the things we do have to have. We have to have the funds available in order to qualify. And we cannot ask for a loan from a financial institution to send it in. Interfund is okay because that's all city money, but we cannot go into debt with an outside entity and submit it. So this is what that $2,200,000, we don't have our exact amount. They tell us what our exact amount is that we can contribute and then they'll do the match to. So we want to make sure we have the funds available when that does become available to us.
That was gonna be my question, is there a max amount?
Yeah, and they will let us know what that is. So that's what that one is, and that's why it's new in there, the payroll cost. And it's non-departmental because it goes into that general fund. And I can't allocate out how much it goes to each department. So that's the big one there. Professional fees, that includes our architects, our consultants, our engineers for general things that we need to use them for. And community development, that includes our contributions to projects in conjunction with BCDA, the Boy Scouts who put out our flags on holidays, special projects, council expenses, the Christmas decorating, all of those. And for our transfers, this is where all the transfers come out of from this department, the non-departmental one. So the 4.6 million that we have in transfers, we are going to be transferring 2 million to our general reserve. 30,000 to the street fund. It needed a little bit help for this coming budget year, fiscal year. We are transferring 2 million to the street reserve. And that is 336,000 from the ARPA funds. To the 1,383,000 from CREZ that we received. The $200,000 Amazon grant, And then 80.7 thousand from other revenues to complete the 2 million transfer to the street reserve so that we can do street projects. That is one of the main goals for the city right now is street projects, and we're working on that. Any questions on, any other questions on the general fund? Our water fund is an enterprise fund, which means only the money that we collect from providing water services is the money that goes in, and only the expenses that it takes to provide those water services is the money that goes out. That's why there's no other departments in this fund, and is treated almost as if it was its own business. The general fund is allowed to assist any other fund if it needs to, but the water fund isn't getting any assistance this year. The 21-22 year, we did a large transfer into our water reserve fund. And so that accounts for the lower beginning balance. But you can see we did 566,000 into our reserve. And again, it's for water infrastructure projects, is what our reserves are, the water reserve is for. Any questions on the water fund? Our sewer fund, page 17. This is another enterprise account, and so money in is from the utility bills for sewer services, and money out is the expenses for maintaining and providing those sewer services. Every now and then we get kind of a big repair when somebody hits a sewer line or something, but other than that, it's a pretty straightforward fund. We do anticipate transferring over 275,000 into the sewer reserve funds. Any questions on the sewer fund?
I have one.
Yes.
On 17, dues and fees. Last year it was 9,000 and the proposed this year is 26,000. Can you address that, please?
Yes, so DEQ is having us perform an additional amount of testing from sample tissue to the moisture depth to just a lot of additional testing. And so we have hired IRZ Consulting to run those tests for us and provide some of the reports that DEQ requires. And Anderson Perry does some of the collecting and some of the other professional work that is needed to also satisfy the DEQ requirements. Any other questions? So our garbage fund, page 20, that again is another enterprise fund. The difference with this fund is that the city does not provide these services directly. We don't have staff to go out and collect the trash. We contract that out. It used to be sanitary disposal and it recently got bought out or sold to Waste Connections is the new provider. And you see that our service contract expense has been increasing, and that just shows how much this fund, how much busier it's been getting. A lot of it is increased dumpster and like the 11-yard ones and the 20-yard containers, and it goes across there. I mean, I get phone calls, well, sometimes when I help the girls answer phones, we'll get phone calls from a lot of residents who are, replacing their roof. So they need an 11-yard to fill the old roof into, or they're remodeling, or they're, putting in a new fence, or they're taking out the old one. So it's great that so many people are investing in their own property, and it just shows that, there's that home ownership pride, which Also, as part of this fund is the garbage vouchers that we offer 3 times a year. That comes out of this garbage fund, is the garbage service as well.
I have a question. So as we go through these water and sewer and garbage, how do we as a city help our citizens keep those costs down as they continue to inflate up? So as the water bills continue to grow, as they're gonna grow, and our sewer bills and our garbage bill, which is gonna go, the costs are gonna increase. How do we combat that as a city to help our citizens to have really good rates compared to everybody else?
I'm looking back on here, I think I have listed the last time we actually did a rate increase, and it has been a while. It was 2019, I believe, was the last time we had a rate increase. When we've done our infrastructures for water and for sewer, we have tried to place as much money as we can into the reserves for each reserve appropriately to fund those projects so that we do not have to get it from our residents and up their water rate or their sewer rate so that we can make the payment on debt that we incur for those projects. We've been successful at that. This last go round, when we proposed the GEO bond for the water and wastewater projects, that was one of the things that we considered was if we did a USDA loan, which is a low interest loan, what would that translate into for our residents, for our customers? Right off the bat, USDA said, you've got to increase the rates because we have to have a guaranteed payment. No, none of the city councilors were too fond of that idea. Versus doing a GEO bond, the customer's rates would stay the same. Your property taxes for a lot of people are tax exempt when you do your taxes. So that would help them. And we've kept those water rates low. And like you said, compared to the areas, the cities around us, we continue to be very much lower than what they are.
I was just curious how we did that, because I think that's pretty important that we don't get into the idea that we're just gonna jack rates up to make things nice.
It's very encouraging when you pass that
I
bond.
remember, because you guys made it the city council at that time, the city council at that time did a very good job on getting that out to people that's the plan, and that was a good thing.
Well, I think another thing, Paul, was that they went from 2 times a year for the 3 months to 3 times a year, and that gives people one more opportunity to go take advantage of that if they choose to. That's definitely a cost benefit to all of
We
the
talked
businesses.
about that thing too.
Well, I guess I'd like to interject in here because where we hire the garbage to be done, we have they tell us what to charge. You know what I mean? So they went up this year, I believe. So that has probably nothing that we can control. You know, we really considered when we were going out for the bond because I think what they said that we had to raise our water to $40.
Yeah, 45.
Yeah.
And the
Okay.
sewer is gonna be comparable. Yeah, it's gonna be $100 a month.
Oh, no, it would have way more than doubled your bill because you're only paying $17 and 33 cents or something for water now. So we couldn't see going out to people that are on fixed incomes particularly and saying, oh, by the way, I can get this hot deal from the government if you want to pay a lot for it.
And that's part of the reason I brought up the garbage, is we don't get to dictate the price of that.
But they've
So-
always been they try hard.
I think the other benefit is they can keep, our garbage rates in Morrow County are actually lower than other cities and municipalities because we have the benefit of Finley View. And because,
Tipping fees.
and tipping, right, thank you.
Tipping fees are huge.
Right.
And we benefit from this.
And that was the
Absolutely.
whole comment, or idea is as these expenditures go up for the garbage, how do we combat that to help our citizens? To make sure that they feel like, hey, it's not cost effective when you have garbage anymore, I'll find a different way to throw it out.
No, you don't have a choice.
So, choice of the city.
That,
An ordinance that says you will pay for the city. garbage.
Oh, so you don't have a choice of having your own, so you have to pay for garbage.
In the city.
yes, keep it in the city limits. That's why you don't see these trailers next to your house with bags of garbage in them, waiting for the free dump month to go out there. That it's an ordinance that you have to have. And that you have to take your garbage can up off the street, by the way, which I thought
And
was.
because of that, I think it's
I
important
never
that
do
we
that.
work very hard, I'm not saying that we don't, but correct, to make sure that our garbage doesn't get out of whack.
No,
Especially with what's going on right now as far as how everything's jacked, is going up, just being expensive, fuel costs alone.
Yeah, that has been the reason the garbage company has come to us in the past and asked for an increase. Is due to rising gas.
In our street fund, like I mentioned before, this was the fund that was gonna need just a little bit of help this year. And we're going to be transferring $30,000 in to help them out. We don't have any huge increases in expenses to say, oh, this is why. But the street fund is not like the enterprise funds, that it has a revenue source where it collects money for a service. You know, we don't have any tolls. We don't have anything that we can charge for street-wise, transportation-wise, to collect resources from.
We can make tolls.
Well, if you
Oh,
build
yeah.
a bridge.
Did I really just hear that?
If you build a
Well,
bridge or a freeway.
The
it's fine.
cities that do have a bridge and they have a toll fee, that's the type of fund where it goes into. Well, we don't have any of those. We receive state road tax revenues. So the Oregon Department of Transportation shares some of their taxes with us. That is the big funding source for this fund. And then we'll get some interest off of it or something like that. And that's why the general fund has stepped in to assist this fund with its just day-to-day expenses. We have striping that is done throughout the city every year. We have walking paths that have to be replaced where they're posts that are there to protect the pedestrians, get run over, and we've got to have those repaired. We have guardrails that get hit in the winter time, and we have to get those repaired. So, you know, somebody runs over a stop sign, knocks it over, we have to get that repaired. So all of those type of expenses are what come out of this fund.
And the people who wreck into these things don't have to pay that back.
If we know who they are, and we try to go after those, but there's a lot of times where it happened at night and nobody else was there.
Okay.
But if we can, we do try.
We're right at the 1 hour mark. Is this a good spot to take a short recess? All right, 5 minutes.
We
Ready
muted,
to the back?
we just mute, is that what we do?